20 controversial celebrity deaths that still haunt Hollywood. They lit up the screen, ruled the charts, and became the heartbeat of entire generations. But when the curtain fell, their stories didn't end with standing ovations. They ended in chaos, confusion, and whispered rumors that still echo through the halls of Hollywood. These weren't just tragic losses, they were chilling mysteries that left behind more questions than answers. From suspicious circumstances to shocking twists, these 20 celebrity deaths remain some of Tinseltown's most haunting, unsolved chapters. Let's dive into each one, starting with the legends whose final moments still leave us wondering. What really happened? Marilyn Monroe. In the quiet, early hours of August 5, 1962, Hollywood lost its brightest star, and the world was never the same. Marilyn was found lifeless in her Brentwood bedroom, an empty bottle of sleeping pills by her side. The official story? Suicide. But from the second the news hit, nothing added up. She had been on the phone just moments before her death, chatty, not despairing. Her housekeeper changed her story multiple times. And the position of Marilyn's body didn't match the signs of livor mortis, suggesting she had died elsewhere and was moved. Then came the whispers. Marilyn's entanglements with President John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert weren't just gossip, they were dangerous secrets. Secrets some believe got her killed. Her home was wiretapped. Her autopsy samples vanished. Critical hours passed before police were even called. And perhaps most chilling of all, some of her death records were mysteriously altered. Was it really an overdose? A cry for help that went too far? Or was the most iconic woman in the world silenced by forces far more powerful than she could fight? More than 60 years later, the mystery still haunts us. Marilyn Monroe didn't just die, she disappeared into legend, leaving behind a trail of questions that may never be answered. George Reeves flew into America's hearts as the beloved Superman of the 1950s. A symbol of strength and heroism beamed straight into living rooms across the nation. But on June 16, 1959, the man behind the cape was found dead from a gunshot wound to the head in his Benedict Canyon home. The ruling? Suicide. Quick, clean, and suspicious from the start. The official story painted Reeves as a depressed, aging actor, trapped by his own cape, drinking heavily and unable to break free from the shadow of Superman. But the evidence told a messier, darker tale. There were no powder burns on his skin, no close-range shot. Multiple bullet holes were found in the floor. And the timing? Witnesses claimed they waited nearly 45 minutes before calling the police. Why the delay? Then came the love triangle. Reeves was caught between his fiery fiancée Leonore Lemon and his former lover Tony Mannix, the wife of MGM heavyweight Eddie Mannix, a man rumored to have deep ties to the mob. Some say Reeves was silenced on Eddie's orders. Others whisper of a drunken night gone horribly wrong, with terrified guests staging a scene to cover up the truth. Decades later, questions still hang in the air like smoke from a gun that no one wants to claim. George Reeves played a bulletproof hero on TV, but in real life, the truth behind his death may be the one thing even Superman couldn't survive. Natalie Wood's death remains one of Hollywood's most chilling and mysterious tragedies. On the night of November 29, 1981, the beloved star of Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story vanished from a yacht near California's Catalina Island, and was later found floating face down in the cold, dark water. She was just 43. The original story claimed she slipped overboard while trying to secure a dinghy. But something never felt right. Natalie was terrified of deep water. She couldn't swim. And when her body was recovered, she was wearing a nightgown, a puffer jacket, and socks. Hardly the clothes of someone who meant to go for a swim. Only 3 others were on that yacht. Her husband Robert Wagner, actor Christopher Walken, and the boat's captain Dennis Davern. Wagner admitted they had argued that night. Years later, Davern came forward, changing his story and accusing Wagner of being involved in her death. In 2018, Wagner was officially named a person of interest after investigators noted his shifting statements and refusal to cooperate. Even more disturbing, Natalie's body bore bruises, injuries some experts believe occurred before she entered the water. Her death certificate was quietly updated in 2012, changing the cause from an accident to drowning and other undetermined factors. Over 4 decades later, the truth still drifts in darkness. The only people who might know what really happened on the yacht Splendor that night remain silent. And Natalie Wood's final moments remain a haunting Hollywood enigma. Bruce Lee was unstoppable until he wasn't. On July 20, 1973, at just 32 years old, the martial arts legend died suddenly in Hong Kong, just weeks before the release of Enter the Dragon, the film that would make him a global icon. The official cause? Cerebral edema, swelling of the brain. But the story didn't end there. In fact, that's where the mystery began. According to reports, Bruce complained of a headache, took a simple painkiller at actress Betty Ting Pei's apartment, laid down for a nap, and never woke up. An autopsy revealed his brain had swollen by 13%, with doctors blaming a rare reaction to an ingredient in the drug Equagesic. But few believed that explanation. How could a man in peak physical condition, faster than lightning, stronger than men twice his size, die from a headache pill? Rumors spread like wildfire. Some claimed he was poisoned by jealous rivals in the Hong Kong film industry. Others pointed to an earlier collapse on the Enter the Dragon set as proof of a hidden illness. And then there was the scandal. The press tried to hide the fact that he died in another woman's apartment, fueling whispers of cover-ups and conspiracy. But perhaps the most haunting twist came 2 decades later, when Bruce's son, Brandon Lee, died in an eerily similar fashion while filming The Crow. Shot by a prop gun that should have been harmless, his death reignited talk of a chilling family curse, one that seemed to follow the Lees like a shadow. Even now, more than 50 years later, Bruce Lee's death remains one of Hollywood's most enduring enigmas. Was it medical tragedy? Foul play? Or something more? The dragon may have fallen, but the legend and the questions refuse to rest. Sharon Tate. August 9, 1969, Hollywood's golden dream turned into a waking nightmare. Actress Sharon Tate, just weeks away from giving birth, was brutally slaughtered alongside 4 others in her Los Angeles home. The crime scene was pure horror, bodies mutilated, the word pig smeared in blood on the front door, and a quiet neighborhood plunged into chaos. The violence didn't just shock the nation, it shattered the peace and love illusion of the 1960s overnight. Charles Manson and his so-called family were eventually convicted, but the truth behind the killings remains tangled in controversy. Prosecutor Vincent Bugliosi's famous helter-skelter theory claimed Manson wanted to ignite a race war. But not everyone buys it. Some investigators point to drug deals, revenge against music producer Terry Melcher, who once lived at the house, or even a sinister message to Hollywood itself. And the theories only grow darker. Former cult member Susan Atkins later suggested they were under the influence of drugs and mind control. Others claim Manson himself may have been a pawn in secret government experiments, puppeteered by forces far beyond his wild eyes. The tragedy didn't end at the crime scene. Tate's husband, director Roman Polanski, was in London when the murders happened. Just years later, he would flee the US after pleading guilty to unlawful sex with a minor, forever staining the legacy of a man once known for art, now tied to scandal. Still, the story haunts us. It's been retold in books, documentaries, and films, most recently in Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, a revisionist fantasy where Tate lives. But real life gave no such mercy. This wasn't just a crime, it was a cultural wound. One that left Hollywood shaken, and America changed forever. John Lennon. The voice that was silenced, and the questions that still echo. On the night of December 8, 1980, the world stood still. Outside the Dakota apartment building in New York City, John Lennon, former Beatle, peace icon, and cultural revolutionary, was gunned down by Mark David Chapman, a troubled fan who had eerily asked for his autograph just hours earlier. The official story? A fame-hungry loner obsessed with the Catcher in the Rye. But for decades, many have wondered, was there something deeper, darker, behind Lennon's murder? Chapman waited calmly for police, reading from J.D. Salinger's novel as if in a trance. That haunting composure, along with gaps in his timeline and an unexplained trip to Hawaii before the killing, sent shockwaves through the conspiracy world. Some believe Chapman was more than a lone madman. that he was a programmed assassin, a puppet of shadowy forces who saw Lenin's influence as a threat. After all, the FBI had already compiled a 371-page file on Lenin, branding him a potential danger due to his outspoken anti-war stance. And this was the post-Watergate era, when faith in the government had crumbled and rumors of CIA mind control experiments, like MK-Ultra, no longer seemed like fiction. Chapman had no job, yet traveled with ease. He acted robotic, detached, some say hypnotized. While mental illness is the official explanation, whispers of something more orchestrated have never truly faded. Because Lenin wasn't just a rock star, he was a symbol of peace, rebellion, and the belief that music could change the world. His death didn't just end a life. It shattered the dream of a Beatles reunion and silenced a voice that dared to challenge the status quo. To this day, the question lingers: did John Lennon die at the hands of a madman, or was it something far more sinister? Tupac Shakur. On the night of September 7, 1996, the streets of Las Vegas echoed with gunfire, and the world changed forever. Tupac Shakur, one of hip-hop's most electrifying voices, was shot 4 times in a brutal drive-by just hours after watching a Mike Tyson fight. He clung to life for 6 days before passing away at just 25. And yet, nearly 3 decades later, no one has been held accountable. Not a single charge. Not a single conviction. The case remains one of the most haunting mysteries in music history. Theories have multiplied like wildfire. Some trace Tupac's murder to the fierce East Coast versus West Coast rap feud that defined the 1990s. Just hours before the shooting, surveillance cameras caught Tupac and Death Row boss Suge Knight brawling with known Crips gang member Orlando Anderson in the MGM Grand. Was this payback? A calculated hit? Others believe something even darker. That Tupac, ever the revolutionary, faked his own death. After all, he adopted the alias Machiavelli, inspired by the philosopher who famously suggested faking one's death to outwit enemies. Some fans are convinced he's still alive, living quietly in Cuba. Then there are those who look higher, at the FBI, the LAPD, and a government that once had his family under surveillance for Black Panther ties. Former LAPD detective Russell Poole even claimed off-duty cops working for Death Row were part of a cover-up. Meanwhile, Las Vegas police have long been accused of mishandling the case, ignoring leads that could have cracked it wide open. 6 months later, Tupac's rival, the notorious B.I.G., was murdered in eerily similar fashion. Another drive-by. Another open case. To this day, fans believe the 2 deaths are connected, 2 fallen kings in a bloody war no one dared to stop. Chris Cornell's death shook the world to its core. On May 18, 2017, the legendary Soundgarden frontman was found lifeless in the bathroom of his Detroit hotel room, just hours after delivering a powerhouse performance on stage. The official word came fast: death by suicide, ruled a hanging by the Wayne County Medical Examiner. But to those who knew him, his family, friends, and millions of fans, the explanation didn't sit right. His wife, Vicky Cornell, has been one of the most outspoken voices questioning the narrative. She revealed that Chris had taken Ativan, an anti-anxiety medication known to cause dangerous side effects in high doses, including suicidal thoughts. She recalled their final phone call. His voice slurred, distant, repeating the words, "I'm just tired." It wasn't him. Then came the autopsy details. 9 broken ribs. A gash on the head. Injuries that experts say don't quite match a typical suicide by hanging. And what raised even more eyebrows? The crime scene tape was removed within hours, and the case was declared closed before the full toxicology report was even in. Some fans, reaching for answers, pointed to Cornell's outspoken activism against child trafficking through his foundation, speculating whether his death was more sinister than it appeared. While no concrete evidence supports those claims, the questions still linger. Chris had fought battles with addiction and depression before, but he had been sober for over a decade. In interviews just days earlier, he spoke about the future with excitement. New music with Soundgarden, new plans, new dreams. He didn't sound like a man ready to leave it all behind. And eerily, just 2 months later, his close friend Chester Bennington of Linkin Park would also die by suicide, on Cornell's birthday. Chris Cornell's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a mystery wrapped in heartbreak. A haunting reminder that even those who seem to rise above their demons can still be fighting silent wars the world never sees. Chester Bennington. On July 20, 2017, the day that would have marked Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday, Chester Bennington, the electrifying voice behind Linkin Park, was found dead in his California home. The coroner ruled it suicide by hanging. But the timing felt too haunting, too exact, too intentional. Just 2 months earlier, Cornell, Bennington's close friend and fellow rock legend, died the same way. Both were found hanging. Both had substances in their systems. Chester had alcohol in his bloodstream. And both deaths were quickly labeled as suicides. The chilling similarities didn't sit right with fans, or even some family members. These weren't just rock icons. They were fierce advocates against child abuse. That fact alone fueled conspiracy theories. Were they silenced for what they knew? There's no solid evidence behind these claims, but the questions refused to go away. Chester's widow, Talinda, at first accepted the suicide ruling. But over time, doubt crept in. She recalled how, just days before his death, Chester had been making plans: a family vacation, business meetings, laughter with their children. She couldn't reconcile the man she saw then with the tragedy that followed. Adding fuel to the fire was a troubling detail. The security cameras at Chester's home reportedly malfunctioned during the exact hours surrounding his death. Maybe just a glitch. Or maybe not. Either way, it became a key piece in the swirling storm of speculation. Before his death, Chester had spoken openly about his battles, with childhood trauma, addiction, and the crushing weight of depression. Cornell's death had shattered him. He even sang Hallelujah at Chris's funeral, a performance so raw it broke hearts worldwide. In the end, Chester Bennington's death left behind more than sorrow. It left behind questions. Was it the final chapter in a lifelong struggle? Or was something more hidden at play? One thing remains heartbreakingly clear. Behind the voice that lit up arenas was a man silently drowning, and the world never fully saw it coming. Brittany Murphy. She was young, radiant, and unforgettable. But on December 20, 2009, everything changed. At just 32 years old, the beloved star of Clueless and Girl, Interrupted collapsed in the bathroom of her Hollywood Hills home and never woke up. Fans were stunned. How could someone so full of life vanish so suddenly? The official cause? Pneumonia, anemia, a mix of prescription and over-the-counter meds. But instead of bringing closure, those answers only deepened the mystery. And then came an even darker twist. Just 5 months later, her husband, Simon Monjack, died in the same house, of nearly identical causes: acute pneumonia and severe anemia. The eerie timing sparked a firestorm of theories. Toxic mold, deliberate poisoning. In 2013, an independent report commissioned by Brittany's father claimed high levels of heavy metals were found in her hair, hinting at something sinister. But experts pushed back, blaming everything from hair dye to flawed testing methods. Adding to the unease were chilling reports that Brittany and Simon believed they were being watched. Phones tapped, helicopters circling, paranoia mounting. Some linked their fears to whistleblower Julia Davis, a former Homeland Security agent who'd supposedly made powerful enemies, and whose friendship with the couple may have placed targets on their backs. Brittany's mother, Sharon, who lived with them, has always insisted it was mold that killed them both. But that theory, too, was dismissed by officials. What's left is a tangled web of unanswered questions. Was it illness? An accident? A conspiracy? Whatever the truth, Brittany Murphy's death remains one of Hollywood's most haunting mysteries, an unsettling reflection of our deepest fears, and a reminder that sometimes the story behind the headlines is far more disturbing than we're ready to believe. Heath Ledger. On January 22, 2008, the world was shaken by the devastating news. Heath Ledger, just 28 years old, was found dead in his Manhattan apartment. A rising star with a rare intensity, Ledger had just delivered what would become one of the most iconic performances in film history, his haunting portrayal of the Joker in The Dark Knight. But before the world could fully witness his brilliance, he was gone. The official cause? An accidental overdose. a lethal mix of prescription drugs, including painkillers, anti-anxiety meds, and sleeping pills. But from the moment his death hit the headlines, whispers of mystery and unanswered questions began to swirl. Many pointed to the toll of his final role. Ledger had reportedly battled severe insomnia and disturbing thoughts while preparing for the Joker, even keeping a chilling diary filled with twisted sketches and cryptic entries that mirrored the character's madness. It raised a haunting question: had the role consumed him? Then came the strange details of his final hours. The masseuse who discovered Ledger's body allegedly called Mary-Kate Olsen, his rumored girlfriend, several times before contacting 911. Olsen, in turn, sent her private security to the scene, sparking rumors of a potential cleanup before authorities could investigate. Conflicting reports only deepen the mystery. Was Ledger already dead when he was found, or could he have been saved with a faster response? Though the medical examiner ruled it an accident, Heath Ledger's death remains wrapped in tragedy, suspicion, and myth. And with The Dark Knight released posthumously to universal acclaim, his final performance stands as both a masterpiece and a chilling farewell from a talent gone far too soon. Anna Nicole Smith. She was beauty, fame, and scandal wrapped into one unforgettable figure. A former Playboy model turned reality TV icon, Anna Nicole Smith's life was a whirlwind of glamour, heartbreak, and controversy, and her death was no different. On February 8, 2007, just 5 months after losing her beloved 20-year-old son Daniel to a drug overdose, Anna was found unresponsive in a Florida hotel room. She was only 39. The cause? A lethal mix of at least 9 prescription drugs. An accidental overdose that shocked the world and mirrored the tragedy that had just shattered her family. But Anna's story didn't end there. Her death ignited a legal firestorm. Her companion and lawyer, Howard K. Stern, along with 2 doctors, faced serious charges for allegedly feeding her addiction. Most of the charges would later be dropped or overturned, but the damage was done. And while the media swirled with courtroom drama, another bombshell took center stage: the paternity of her newborn daughter, Dannylyn. Multiple men came forward, each claiming to be the father, their motives shadowed by the possibility of inheriting a piece of the vast fortune Anna had fought to win from her late billionaire husband, J. Howard Marshall II. Eventually, a DNA test revealed the truth. Photographer Larry Burkhead was Dannylyn's father. The speculation didn't stop there. Some whispered that Anna's overdose wasn't so accidental, that someone wanted her gone to end the legal war over the Marshall fortune. Others couldn't ignore the eerie similarity between her death and her son's. Was it fate? Or something far more sinister? Anna Nicole Smith's life was a modern tragedy. A small-town girl who dreamed big, rose fast, and burned out in the harsh spotlight of celebrity. Her rise to fame promised the world but came with a price she could never have imagined. In the end, her story became a cautionary tale of what happens when fame devours the person behind the image. Prince, a silent battle behind the purple curtain. When the world learned that Prince had been found unresponsive in the elevator of his Paisley Park estate on April 21, 2016, the shock was seismic. A musical genius was gone. An icon who redefined sound, identity, and freedom. The official cause? An accidental overdose of fentanyl, a synthetic opioid so potent it's often deadly in micrograms. But what made his death even more heartbreaking was the devastating contradiction. Prince, the clean-living, alcohol-free vegetarian who preached health and discipline, had been quietly fighting a war with chronic pain and a growing dependency on painkillers. Just 6 days before his passing, his private jet made an emergency landing. He had overdosed mid-flight. It was a red flag, a cry for help that the world missed. Prince had no prescriptions in his name. Like many celebrities guarding their privacy, he relied on others to acquire medications, sidestepping proper medical supervision. Authorities later discovered pills stashed in bottles labeled as ordinary hydrocodone, only to find they were laced with fentanyl. Did he even know what he was taking? Or was the pressure of fame and isolation so intense that even Prince, the ultimate control artist, couldn't seek help without risking exposure? No one was ever charged. No one held accountable. And the aftermath only deepened the tragedy. With no will in place, his vast estate and vault of unreleased music became the center of bitter legal battles among family members. For a man who spent his life fighting for control of his art and his name, the chaos that followed his death felt like a cruel twist of fate. Prince didn't just leave behind music. He left behind questions, heartbreak, and a legacy caught between brilliance and silence. Michael Jackson. The world stood still on June 25, 2009. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, a global icon, was gone. At just 50 years old, he died of cardiac arrest in his Los Angeles mansion while preparing for his highly anticipated This Is It comeback tour. But his death was far from simple. It ignited one of the most controversial investigations in celebrity history. The cause? Acute propofol intoxication, a powerful surgical anesthetic, mixed with heavy sedatives. His personal doctor, Dr. Conrad Murray, had been administering these drugs in a reckless attempt to help Jackson sleep. But that treatment would prove fatal. The fallout was swift and damning. Murray, accused of gross negligence, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and served 2 years behind bars. Yet, many still question whether he was the true villain, or simply a pawn in a much deeper, darker system. For years, Jackson had been prescribed an array of medications by various doctors, often under fake names. Some believe the music industry itself, specifically tour promoter AEG Live, pushed Jackson beyond his limits, demanding a comeback from a man already crumbling under physical and emotional exhaustion. The Jackson family's wrongful death lawsuit against AEG may have failed, but it spotlighted the brutal toll fame can take and how vulnerable even the most legendary artists can become. His death also reopened the wounds of past controversies, from his ever-changing appearance to the child abuse allegations that haunted his legacy. Today, Michael Jackson remains both a celebrated genius and a figure cloaked in mystery. His story is a tragic reminder that behind the spotlight, even kings can fall, and sometimes, the truth dies with them. Whitney Houston. On February 11, 2012, the world lost a voice that could move mountains. Whitney Houston was found unconscious in a bathtub at the Beverly Hilton Hotel, just hours before she was set to grace a pre-Grammy party. The official cause of death, accidental drowning, with heart disease and cocaine use playing a role. But the circumstances surrounding her final hours continue to raise haunting questions. What shocked many wasn't just the tragedy itself, it was the chilling indifference. As Whitney lay lifeless upstairs, the pre-Grammy party hosted by her mentor, Clive Davis, carried on just floors below. To some, it was business as usual. To others, a staggering display of disrespect. Even more unsettling? Reports that items vanished from her room before authorities could secure the scene, fueling whispers of evidence tampering. And then came the most painful twist of all. Almost exactly 3 years later, her daughter Bobby Christina was found in a bathtub under eerily similar conditions. She never woke up. Whitney's ex-husband, Bobby Brown, believes neither death was accidental, that both were victims of foul play masked as drug-related tragedies. While no hard evidence has confirmed his claims, the eerie parallels and suspicious details continue to haunt fans and investigators alike. Toxicology reports revealed a dangerous cocktail in Whitney's system: cocaine, Xanax, Benadryl, marijuana, likely enough to disorient even the strongest among us. It's believed she may have slipped beneath the water, unaware and unable to respond. Her death wasn't just the end of a legendary career. It was a brutal reminder of addiction's grip and the entertainment industry's cold truth. The show often goes on, even while its brightest stars fade away. Kurt Cobain. When his lifeless body was found in his Seattle home on April 8, 1994, it sent shockwaves through the music world. The voice of a generation was gone, and with him, the spirit of grunge itself. At just 27, the Nirvana frontman had become an icon, but his death became an unsolved riddle that still haunts fans today. Officially, the Seattle police ruled it a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A suicide note, his history of depression and heavy drug use seemed to tell a tragic but straightforward story. But the truth might not be that simple. Toxicology reports revealed a staggering amount of heroin in his system, 3 times the lethal limit, even for a seasoned user. Could someone that high really have picked up a shotgun and pulled the trigger? The gun had no fingerprints. The note raised more questions than it answered. And then came private investigator Tom Grant, hired by Kurt's wife, Courtney Love, just days before the discovery. Grant didn't just suspect foul play. He became convinced Kurt Cobain had been murdered. And worse, he believed Courtney Love herself might have played a role, driven by money and fear of abandonment. She has fiercely denied all accusations. No one has ever been charged. Still, the whispers never faded. The case has been reopened for review more than once, most notably in 2014, on the 20th anniversary of his death. Yet the official verdict stands unchanged. Suicide. And so, Cobain remains frozen in time, forever 27, enshrined in the tragic club of young musical legends gone too soon. But his legacy is more than music. It's a mystery. A question mark that refuses to be erased. Because when someone so raw, so gifted, so alive, is suddenly gone, we can't help but wonder, did he truly choose to leave us? Or was that choice made for him? Amy Winehouse. Amy Winehouse's death on July 23, 2011, was heartbreaking, but to many, it felt tragically inevitable. At just 27 years old, the British soul powerhouse was found lifeless in her London flat, her blood alcohol level more than 5 times the legal limit. The official cause, alcohol poisoning, what the coroner called death by misadventure. But behind the headlines was a deeper, more complicated truth. Her father, Mitch Winehouse, has long insisted that Amy was turning a corner. According to him, she had been clean from drugs for 3 years and was slowly clawing her way out of alcoholism. He believed her death wasn't the result of a binge, but a fatal seizure caused by detoxing too fast, without the proper medical care. Controversy only deepened when it was revealed that Amy's doctor, who had seen her the night before, chose not to hospitalize her, despite obvious signs of relapse. Some critics have argued that the industry around her was more invested in keeping her on stage than keeping her alive. Like Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, and Janis Joplin before her, Amy joined the hauntingly tragic 27 Club, a group of brilliant artists lost too soon, often consumed by fame, addiction, and mental anguish. Her death didn't just mark the loss of a voice. It was a brutal reminder of how the music industry can chew up its most fragile stars and leave them to fall apart behind the scenes. Philip Seymour Hoffman, a towering talent and one of Hollywood's most revered character actors, was found lifeless on February 2, 2014, in the bathroom of his Manhattan apartment. The needle still in his arm told a heartbreaking story before the autopsy even could. The official cause, a deadly cocktail of heroin, cocaine, benzodiazepines, and amphetamines. He was just 46. In the months leading up to his death, Hoffman had slipped back into addiction. His separation from longtime partner Mimi O'Donnell, the mother of his 3 children, left emotional wounds that hadn't healed. Alone in a new apartment, he battled his demons in silence. Friends had seen the warning signs. At the Sundance Film Festival just 2 weeks prior, he looked worn down, disheveled, and haunted. The night before his death, he withdrew $1,200 from an ATM, money believed to have been used to buy the very drugs that ended his life. Investigators later revealed that the heroin found in his apartment was part of a dangerously potent batch sweeping the East Coast, linked to multiple overdoses. Hoffman's death wasn't just a loss to cinema. It was a gut-wrenching reminder of how addiction can claim even the brightest stars in the darkest moments. Paul Walker, the man who brought speed, loyalty, and heart to the Fast and Furious franchise, met a fate so cruelly ironic, it felt scripted by tragedy itself. On November 30, 2013, the 40-year-old actor was riding shotgun in a Porsche Carrera GT when it lost control on a quiet street in Santa Clarita, California. The car slammed into a concrete lamppost, then a tree, before erupting into flames, killing both Paul and his friend, driver Roger Rodas, on impact. Investigators cited excessive speed, between 80 and 93 miles per hour in a 45 miles per hour zone, as the main cause. But the story didn't end there. The Porsche Carrera GT, a car long known for its unpredictable handling, was no ordinary vehicle. Even car enthusiast Jay Leno had warned about its dangerous tendencies. Fueled by grief and unanswered questions, Paul's daughter filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Porsche, claiming the car's design flaws helped seal her father's fate. Whispers of street racing surfaced, though police found no proof. And as with many untimely celebrity deaths, conspiracy theories emerged, suggesting Paul's charitable work in disaster zones may have led him to discover secrets worth silencing. No solid evidence ever backed these claims, but the speculation only deepened the mystique around his death. Paul was on a break from filming Furious 7 when the crash happened, forcing the production to rewrite the film's emotional core. His brothers stepped in as stand-ins while groundbreaking CGI recreated his likeness, sparking an ethical debate that still haunts Hollywood. How far should we go to resurrect the dead for one last performance? Paul Walker's final ride wasn't just the end of a life. It was the start of a legacy, immortalized in speed, sorrow, and cinematic memory. Robin Williams, the silent battle behind the smile. On August 11, 2014, the world was shaken by the heartbreaking news of Robin Williams' passing. The beloved actor and comedian, known for lighting up millions of lives with laughter, had taken his own life at age 63. Found in his Paradise Cay, California home, his death was confirmed to be asphyxia due to hanging, a shocking end for a man who seemed to embody joy. At first, the narrative pointed to his long struggles with depression and past substance abuse. But soon, the story took a deeper, more tragic turn. Robin's wife, Susan Schneider Williams, revealed he had recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, something he had confided in only a few. Yet even that didn't explain the haunting depths of his final days. The real revelation came with the autopsy. Robin had been living with undiagnosed Lewy body dementia, a cruel, degenerative brain disease that hijacks not only memory, but identity itself. Suddenly, the story wasn't just about depression. It was about a brilliant mind slowly slipping away, a man trapped in a body and brain he no longer recognized. Susan later shared that Robin wasn't trying to end his life out of despair alone, but because he could feel himself disappearing. The very thing that made him him, his wit, his genius, his spark, was being stolen day by day. And he knew it. Experts have since questioned whether an earlier, accurate diagnosis might have helped him face his illness differently. But there is no cure. Only the chilling realization that even the brightest souls can be overtaken by shadows the world never sees. Robin's death was more than a tragedy, it was a wake-up call. A reminder that mental health is layered, that neurological conditions often go misread, and that even those who make us laugh the hardest may be fighting battles we'll never fully understand. As we close this chapter in our journey through Hollywood's most mysterious and heartbreaking stories, we hope it's left you with new insight into the fragile humanity behind the fame. If you were moved by this story, please like and subscribe for more powerful deep dives into the untold truths of iconic lives. Which of these revelations surprised you most? Are there other Hollywood stories you believe deserve to be uncovered? Share your thoughts in the comments. We're listening. And remember, even the stars who shine the brightest can cast the darkest shadows.